Hey y'all, I want to introduce you to Starting Block, the best co-working space in Madison. If you work from home or you are new to Madison, or you just feel like you don't have a professional community, you should definitely check out Starting Block. Many of you may know Starting Block as Madison's startup hub, but it's a lot more than that. They're constantly hosting networking and professional events for the community, and their co-working membership rates are super competitive. So if you're tired of working from home or you want to build your professional community, check out Starting Block at startingblockmadison.org. And that's startingblockmadison.org. Today on CityCast Madison. It's the Friday News Roundup. This week, I'm joined by CityCast Madison's Hayley Sperling. Madison Common Council voted yes to adding the $22 million property tax referendum to November's ballot. The mayor announces bus rapid transit will officially launch next month. And there's a new citizen science tool out for monitoring our local water quality. It's Friday, August 23rd. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Welcome to the Friday News Roundup. We are back and we are energized. Man, there has been some real civic political energy. You know, we had the RNC earlier this year and then the DNC is happening right now. It's hard not to feel the political energy. And then on top of it, stuff is going down in our city. Real moves in the political landscape and real motion in the city around money and how we live our lives. Man, there's a lot of energy. So let's talk about it. Joining me today is the leader of this here podcast, Hayley Sperling. How are you?
Hello, Bianca. Yes, we got so much civic news going on, especially at the city level.
Yeah, you stayed up to find out what happened, and I may have been watching the DNC.
I stayed up late-ish. It wasn't actually that late. They got things wrapped up at a pretty decent time. But the thing that we have been talking about for what feels like forever and ever and ever finally happened. On Tuesday, City Council voted to put a $22 million property tax referendum on the November ballot. So it is happening, y'all. The council overwhelmingly approved the measure. Only alders Isidore Knox and Barbara Harrington McKinney voted in opposition to the measure. So what this means now is that voters will decide the fate of how Madison's operating budget gets balanced. And essentially, if the referendum is approved, property owners, on average, will see a roughly $230 annual increase on their taxes. This also means that the city won't have to cut vital services that people rely on daily, like street cleaning and metro operations and police and libraries. And we recently had a conversation with Alder Sabrina Madison about the importance of Madison's libraries, which was super illuminating. And she also has a conversation coming up later this month too, right?
She does, yeah, and she talked about this, but she wants to bring attention just in case this referendum doesn't pass. Possibly the Imagination Center at Rindale Park is at threat, you know, so she's doing a town hall to inform, educate, and advocate to keep that project alive and make sure that that happens. That's coming up next week on Tuesday, August 27th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Rindale Park Shelter. So that's something we'll definitely toss a link to. The City of Madison has a post about it, so you can read a little bit more. But yeah, definitely recommend listening to that conversation too, because it's just an example of the sort of consequences that we're facing.
Yeah.
You know, the possibility of a part of the city that's been expecting a resource to come, a much needed resource that, you know, its future kind of weighs in the balance of this decision.
Yeah. So there's a lot to consider with this referendum, especially because this November vote will be historic. Because according to the Cap Times, this is the first time that Madison voters will be asked to consider property tax referendum from both the Madison School District and the city. So if you'll recall, MMSD is asking voters to approve more than $600 million in funding for facilities and staffing programs through 2 referendum questions on the November ballot. And if approved, those measures would bump the average homeowner's property tax by roughly like $1,000 over the next few years. It's kind of like this staggered increase, like the first year would be less and then it goes up to 1,000. And this is something that has folks like a little bit worried in terms of like, are voters just going to be overwhelmed by sticker shock, right? Which is something to consider, you know, is this timing a mistake? You know, what's going to happen? But also, it's just kind of the product of our situation, right? Especially on the city budget end, this question can't really wait any longer. So I think it's a little unfortunate that it is happening at the same time as the school district referendum, but also like these things, they just have to happen, right? So voters will make their voices heard on November 5th, and we'll see what happens. If they choose to reject the city's referendum, the city's going to have to make roughly $6 million in cuts like right away. And that translates to around like 60-ish layoffs. And those cuts would only get bigger in the years to come. So one city service that's potentially on the chopping block is none other than Goodman Pool, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yes.
One retired teacher told the Cap Times that, like, you know, this would be a huge shock to people. She said, quote, "Closing the Goodman Pool is the antithesis of everything Madison stands for, and it makes me wonder where our values are." And that quote just kind of like stood out to me because I think it's also just very representative of like this entire budget conversation, right? Like, where are our values? What do we value as a city? What are the things that we use every day or that we have strong memories associated with that are actually funded and operated by the city that we're not really taking into account, right? Goodman Pool is just one of them. And again, like, it's the metro, it's police, it's our streets, it is quite literally everything. And folks might be asking, you know, why can't the city just use its rainy day funds to plug these holes? Great question. They already kind of are. So that's the thing. Even if the referendum passes, the city will still plan to spend roughly $25 million from its reserves by 2030 under Mayor Satya Rhodes Conway's long-term budget plan. So it's not like they're not examining the options. You know, city leaders had to come back to the mayor and said, like, okay, yeah, if this doesn't pass this, here's what we're going to cut. And it's just kind of staggering across the board. You know, we said like the CARES team could get cut. And those are, you know, resources that we know are important and valuable to our city. Even though they're newer, they're still important and valuable. So a big root cause of this budget issue really comes from our lovely Republican-controlled legislature that just hasn't given Madison its fair share of state resources. Madison is not receiving enough money from the state in terms of shared revenue, and the chokehold that the legislature puts in terms of different laws that the city can enact in order to raise money has kind of led us to this point. And from where do we go now? To the ballots, right?
Yeah. And, you know, I'm among us, one of the Madisonians, and just hearing the thoughts, it's like, why is this our problem?
Right.
What do you mean the city needs us? Like, we must fix this issue. And it's like really complicated. And the city's hands are tied to a degree, like you said, in terms of the state. Some of these measures might not be necessary if the state government changed the way the city is allowed to raise money. So like in the form of a local sales tax, or if they change the amount of money that we get from the state, you know, known as shared revenue. We know that we had this budget surplus as a state, but our city doesn't anticipate like benefiting from any adjustments there to shared revenue until 2026. So like we are facing this issue together, whether we like it or not. And there were, like you said, there were alternatives that were looked at, and we're just facing a tough situation. And, you know, I hate to moralize anyone in terms of how they choose to vote on this, but it's a tough picture.
It is.
It's a tough
We're
picture.
stuck between a rock and a hard place, no matter how you look at it. And it's kind of just all coming together on this November ballot. So really interesting to see how voters go on this one. We're really going to have to wait and see. One person that I would love to talk to about this would be our own mayor. So Mrs. Madison.
Miss Satya. Miss Madison.
Yeah, come on the podcast. We would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's make that happen. Well, so a lot going down. Let's go ahead and take a quick break before we get into any more news. So you're listening to CityCast Madison. You clearly care about what's happening in our city and have fantastic taste in podcasts. I've got a recommendation for another local news podcast you gotta check out. It's called 365 Amplified. Every week, the award-winning reporting team behind Madison 365 digs into their most important stories from the week. They do stories and perspectives you likely won't get from many other mainstream outlets. They invite on community leaders, lawmakers, artists, and more for candid conversations. Recent guests include State Senate candidate Samba Balde, celebrity chef Elena Terry, and Forward Madison striker Derek Gebhardt. They drop new episodes every Friday at madison365.org/amplified. You can also search 365 Amplified wherever you listen to our show. And we are sticking on city news. The wheels on the bus go round and round. Bus rapid transit is coming. Speaking of Miss Madison, our Madison mayor, Satya Rhodes Conway, announced that Metro Transit's East-West rapid transit line is scheduled to start on September 22nd. Bow, 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 bow.
Yeah, right. We need some sound effects there. Like, it's been such a long time coming. Just like this referendum, we've been talking about it endlessly. We've been talking about BRT for so long. My friends and I lovingly just call it Satya's bus. We say Satya's bus is coming.
Yes, it's coming, and we're seeing it and seeing the stations like up and really close. They're close. So that's September 22nd. That's just under a month from today. This first leg of bus rapid transit is hitting our streets. So this is a huge update and investment in our transportation infrastructure. There's a series of updates coming next month. Additionally, Metro is also launching its fast fare system in September. So that's in preparation for the launch of the East-West Rapid Corridor routes. Metro is installing a new fare system that will make riding the bus faster and more convenient. So we're joining the modern world. We're going to be able to board and tap a reloadable Metro smart card at any bus door. So you won't be standing behind someone who's putting in their coins. We're coming to the new world. There'll be ticket vending machines at BRT stations and pay as you go with fare capping technology. So some updates there. So yeah, there's just a lot to celebrate with this launch and this new route. It's going to have more stops. So it's going to be making the city and the center of the city much more accessible to more residents and faster service. Bus rapid transit.
It's rapid. It's in the name. I'm so excited.
It's in the name.
I'm so stoked for the buses. I don't know about you, Bianca. Like, I used to be a very religious bus rider up until the pandemic. That's how I got around. I didn't have a car. I used the bus to get my groceries to go to work and do all the thing. And then 2020, I was like, I can't ride the bus. I need a car. And I've just been so car dependent recently. But I find more and more that
it feels wrong.
It does feel wrong. And
I feel a little dirty driving so much because I didn't used to have a car in Madison. It's just not needed. Sorry, it's needed for some.
It's needed in a lot of cases, but especially, if you're going from the near east or the near west side, to downtown, it's just so much easier to take the bus, right? And then you don't even have to worry about parking and paying all of those fees. And you don't have to worry about traffic and weird road closures because they're literally always happening. And I don't know about you, Bianca, but recently, maybe this is just a product of Madison being a growing city or something, but like I've experienced a lot more instances of like witnessing road rage out on our streets, like people just kind of driving crazy. And I'm like, you don't live here or you're not from here. Like, I don't know. It's been rubbing me in a weird way.
Or the calls coming from inside the house.
True.
And people here
True.
need a little namaste, a little self-care.
I know we all need a little self-care, but I'm excited for the bus. I'm excited for this fast fare system too. I think it's going to be super awesome. It reminds me a lot of like, you know, I was in Amsterdam earlier this year and like I took the public transportation there and it was like so easy.
Doing research for the show.
Doing research. CityCast.
Yes,
CityCast Amsterdam. I wish. But you know, it was just like, it was so easy, you know, tap, get on at the back of the bus, you know, it's fine. It works. So I'm super stoked. I think a lot of people are really stoked. I was actually creeping on the Madison Reddit earlier today and someone had posted, they're like, I live in Milwaukee, but like, I'm so jealous of you guys for getting BRT. Like, ride the bus a lot. Like, this is such a gift. Like, you're so lucky, you know.
We're inspiring envy.
Yeah, truly, with our buses. And I mean, the new stations look awesome.
I do think they're looking smooth. They're looking slick. Some of them, as you had mentioned on a recent show, they've got little names of the streets. And I love the red color on the streets. I don't know. I like that. Just a couple more notes about the fast, rapid nature of this. You know, this service will be running approximately every 15 minutes.
Nice.
That's good. That's good news, yo. That is good news. And the buses themselves are updated, right? So Metro's coming Rapid Route A and local routes B and F will be served by 60-foot articulated all electric buses with dual side boarding options. Both sides, y'all. This is Xenon future technology.
We're in the year 3000.
We're in the year 3000. We can get on both sides of the bus. So we're, you know, coming up like some bigger cities. And we should note these buses are quieter. They're more eco-friendly because they hold like 50% more riders than our local buses. So I just think I so agree with you. The pandemic, I mean, it made it uncomfortable to be in public spaces and unsafe, you know, unless you were properly masked and other people were properly masked. So we all got a little weird. So here's the coming together on the bus. We might even do something like that later. Wink, wink. We'll talk soon about that. But yeah, lots of great things. You can see the map for this east-west rapid corridor online, and we'll toss a link to that in our show notes. But this route is like, it goes all the way down East Washington corridor, out past the mall towards Sun Prairie, and then all the way the other way west, out through, you know, past campus and Shorewood Hills, down to Mineral Point Road, out by Middleton. So it's a really good stretch. It's a stretch of the city. So that is really, really dope. The Madison mayor said, you know, September 22nd, it's going to be a big day. And quote, I'm proud to say we are well on our way to integrating a north-south BRT line as well. So that is big. And that line's going to share the middle of the city and then crisscross and head north to hit Madison's north side and then head south to hit Madison's south side, like towards Fitchburg.
Oh, nice. So we are connected. We're getting connected.
We're getting really connected, and there are like tons more stops basically. So that's that accessibility bit. We should note, like, part of the efficiency bit is that these buses are going to have their own traffic lanes. We've seen, if you've driven on the roads, you've already seen that. And I think that's caused a little bit of the confusion there. But those are what's going to make these times possible, is them having their own lanes. That's certainly part of it.
That's those like red squares over on East Wash. And like, I mean, wherever you see those red squares, which people have been confused about, it's like, don't drive in those. You're not going to get in trouble right now, but like, you might as well just get it into your head. Like, don't drive in the red squares because there's going to be buses there. And once the buses do start rolling, like, MPD is already kind of figuring out how they're going to enforce those traffic rules. It's definitely going to be in a learning curve, you know, but it's stay away from the red.
Stay away from the red. And we know, like, look, we live here, so we know that people have questions. I've gotten into Ubers and they're like, I've heard them griping about these new lanes. And I think it's one of those things, once it's happening, it's going to make more sense, but it is going to take a second. There are lots of questions. We did have a really excellent conversation about answering your questions on BRT, so we will throw that conversation into our show notes. But it makes sense that there are questions, and there's actually going to be later this month and in early September opportunities for you to get your questions answered in person. So Metro will be hosting open houses at several of the BRT stations around the city. So you can like literally go ask your questions to our Metro staff.
We love an open house. I love that. We love a public
Yeah, are
forum.
you all going to have snacks? Like
I'll get the snacks.
We're needy.
My one last thing on BRT before we wrap it up is that I don't know if you've seen these advertisements, Bianca, but I've been seeing these ads all over, like on the internet, on Facebook, on like the Isthmus website, on some other like local news websites. And it's like, it's just a little like display ad with this bus driver doing finger guns, and it's like bus rapid transit launching September 22nd. And I'm just like, yeah, I can get behind this. Like, I love this guy. Like, who is this guy? I don't know who he is. Like, he's just, yeah, he's like doing the guns, got a big smile, got some sunglasses on, but he's like, I'm ready to go. And I'm like, you know what? I'm hyped. I'm ready too.
That's Hayley coded. Our reach is broad.
They learned that from me, actually. Yeah,
they learned that from the Hayley Sperling. So, speaking of rolling out new things that help us live in our city better, there's some kind of cool news. The Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources has a new water tool called the Wisconsin Water Explorer, a web-based tool that's going to help us with understanding and monitoring our water quality. So it's a tool that Wisconsin residents can basically flag and raise concerns about the quality of water in their local lakes and rivers. The DNR said that the Water Explorer is basically making scientific data analysis accessible to the public. Yay! Modernizing the process. Modernization. Modernizing our buses. Modernizing our water quality monitoring systems and making them accessible. We love that.
Nice.
Yeah, and so this tool, apparently it's a combination of several existing water quality tools, including, if you've heard of the Citizen Lake Monitoring Network volunteers, they can now have access and share their automated annual reports summarizing data for their respective lakes, and several others. So we'll toss a link to that tool in our show notes. I just thought that was cool because I had an experience this weekend. Hayley, I was over by Lake Monona, and the sweet lady just came up behind me slowly, walking to check. She was like, is it healthy yet? It was just a little nook by the lake, and she said, I always walk my dog over here. And I was looking out, and it was like a bunch of washed up lake weeds, and I didn't know what to say, but then I said, actually the city has a really good website that monitors water health at our beaches. And she's like, oh my goodness, she was so grateful to hear that. And I thought, dang, I would not have known that if we didn't do the show. So here's to spreading the good word.
I love that. I'm excited to see what happens with this new water quality monitoring system. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it'll bring some good news for our lakes.
Yeah. I'm pro citizen science. Yeah. So yeah. And I'm pro spreading the good word. We had some good word spreads here. Hayley Sperling, thank you so much for rounding up the news with me this week, as always.
Always a pleasure, Bianca.
That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. We're produced by Phil Circus and Elizabeth Kama. Hayley Sperling is our executive producer. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Ava Wynowski is our interim newsletter editor, with assistance this week from Natalia Aldana. You can always get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to Madison Minutes. And if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with a Madison bus driver? We love y'all. All right, see you back here Monday morning with more news from around the city. Ciao.